October 25th, 1986. Game 6 of the World Series is in the 10th inning. Mets batter Mookie Wilson awaits a 3-2 pitch from Red Sox right-hander Calvin Schiraldi and hits a grounder over to first base. Tied at 5, the ball goes right to Red Sox first baseman Bill Buckner. By all available indications, by every possible metric of odds and probability, we are going to the 11th inning. But the little roller up along first went through the legs of Buckner, allowing the Mets to score the winning run. In what would be an absolutely gut-wrenching loss for any team, there was a little extra salt on the Red Sox wound. Actually, it might have been a lot of extra salt on a gushing wound. To understand why, we start back in 1919, where there's this guy named Babe Ruth. He's pretty good at baseball. Before his legendary career with the New York Yankees, Ruth began his professional baseball journey with the Boston Red Sox. Ruth actually had a troubled childhood as he grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and was sent to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys, where he developed his baseball skills under the guidance of brother Matthias. Ruth's talent quickly caught the eyes of scouts, and he signed with the minor league Baltimore Orioles in 1914 before being sold to the Red Sox later that year. Initially, Ruth made his mark as a dominant left-handed pitcher. Between 1915 and 1919, he was one of the better pitchers in the game and helped the Red Sox win 3 World Series titles in 1915, 1916, and 18. He posted an impressive 94-46 record with a 2.28 ERA during his time in Boston, and even set a World Series record for consecutive scoreless innings pitched. But as his career progressed, his extraordinary ability as a hitter began to overshadow his pitching. By 1918 and 19, the Red Sox started using him more in the outfield to use his bat, and in 1919 he hit a then record 29 home runs. Despite his on-field success, Ruth's brash personality and desire for a higher salary created tension with Red Sox management. Team owner Harry Frazee, facing financial difficulties and reportedly interested in financing a Broadway play, sold Ruth to the Yankees in December of 1919 for $100,000 and a $300,000 loan. And it was this sale that would go down in baseball history as one of the most lopsided trades ever and mark the beginning of the Yankees' rise to dominance. The Red Sox infamous curse of the Bambino started. But what made Buckner's famous gaffe even worse? I mean, that's way later at the time, right? 1986. Well, the years between the sale and 1986 really were not so kind to the Red Sox. They had fallen from one of the league's best to the league's basement. They were rarely in contention, and we look at the World Series appearances for them between that time and just every year, it was heartbreak. The team went in 1946 and lost to the St. Louis Cardinals in a 7-game series led by Ted Williams. He had just returned from military service, and despite their strong regular season, Williams was uncharacteristically quiet in the series, going just 5 for 25. And in Game 7, Enos Slaughter's mad dash won the Cardinals the game. In the 8th inning, Slaughter scored from first base on a single due to a delayed relay throw, giving the Cardinals a 4-3 lead that would hold. Boston couldn't respond in the 9th, and their championship drought continued. And in 1967, over 20 years since the 46 loss, they would lose again to the Cardinals in 7 games. The impossible dream team of 1967 surprised everyone by making it to the World Series after finishing 9th the year before. The series again went 7, and the Red Sox faced tough pitcher Bob Gibson, who won all 3 of the games he pitched in for the Cards. And in a dominant Game 7, Gibson pitched a complete game while also hitting a home run. Despite the Red Sox fight, they couldn't overcome Gibson and the Cardinals. And in 1975, another 7-game series, another chance at a win, but no, the team would lose to the Cincinnati Reds. Carlton Fisk had the iconic walk-off home run in Game 6, but Boston also jumped out to an early lead in Game 7. However, the Big Red Machine with Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, and Pete Rose stormed right back, and in the 9th inning, Joe Morgan delivered the go-ahead RBI single that sealed a 4-3 win and the championship. So despite Boston's dramatic Game 6 win and a solid performance, the Reds' depth and clutch hitting won them the series, which of course brought us to 1986, where Buckner's Game 6 error was just too much. In Game 7, the Red Sox led early again, but the Mets rallied to an 8-5 win, and the collapse, of course, would haunt Red Sox fans for years and became the symbol to the curse of the Bambino. So after a gut-wrenching loss in the 1986 World Series, it had already been decades since the Red Sox had won anything, and their World Series disappointments didn't help them out. The Yankees, on the other hand, were stacking rings and won several with the great Bambino. In fact, the Yankees won 22 World Series. 22 World Series in the time between the sale, starting the curse of the Bambino, in 1986. Just stacking the championships like they are simply cards in a deck. Of course, the saying goes, all good things come to an end, but what about the reverse? Do all bad things come to an end? A Red Sox fan would say no going into 2004, but that is where finally, after years and years of disaster and disappointment since Buckner's era and the sale of the game's greatest player to ever live, the Red Sox found the answer they were dying for. And picture this, it's 2004 and the Red Sox are down 3-0 to the mighty Yankees in the LCS. No team has ever come back from that deficit, but then, like something out of a script, Dave Roberts for the Red Sox steals a base in Game 4 and sparks a comeback for the ages. Big Papi walks it off not just once but twice, and Boston claws back. Curt Schilling pitches with a bloody sock. Johnny Damon launches a grand slam in Game 7, and the Red Sox complete the greatest comeback in baseball history. And it felt like everything had finally come together. Was this the moment the curse of the Bambino would end? The Yankees, who had won 26 titles since the curse of the Babe started, were left stunned and on the couch to watch. In Game 1 of the World Series, Boston outslugged St. Louis with an 11-9 win. Despite 4 defensive errors that allowed the Cardinals to stay close, Boston never lost the lead, and Mark Bellhorn's 2-run homer in the 8th broke a 9-9 tie, ultimately sealing the win for the Sox. Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz both homered, continuing their ALCS momentum, but it was a sloppy but electric opening to the series. And in Game 2, Boston's bats again put up 6 runs, a solid performance, and Curt Schilling, battling that ankle injury, which was held together by stitches, picked 6 strong innings and allowed only 1 run. Boston's bullpen also shut the door on a Cardinals offense that looked rattled, and with the win, they took a commanding 2-0 lead as the series shifted to STL. Hall of Famer Pedro Martinez filled out the box score for Boston in Game 3 with a vintage performance, holding the Cardinals scoreless through 7 innings. Manny Ramirez would get things started with a solo home run, and Trot Nixon drove in 2 more with a clutch double. Boston's pitching and defense were good and allowed just 1 unearned run. All of a sudden, Boston was on the clutches of a championship. In Game 4, Boston, in front of a St. Louis crowd, pitched Derek Lowe, who was on short rest, but turned in a masterful performance with 7 innings. Johnny Damon led off the game with a home run to set the tone, and the Sox added 2 more runs on smart situational hitting. The Cardinals, down and demoralized, managed just 5 hits and never mounted a real threat. Edgar Renteria grounded back to the mound for the final out, and with that, the Red Sox were finally World Series champions for the first time in 86 years. But the 2004 Red Sox victory was far more than just that trophy. It was about ending the century of frustration, heartbreak, and myth. Finally, Buckner could breathe from whatever couch she was watching this from, and after decades of being haunted by bad breaks and that infamous curse of the Bambino, Boston dominated for the series win. They became the first team in MLB history to come back from a 3-0 postseason deficit, and then, of course, swept the World Series. Since that win, they've managed to capture more titles and turn right back into the dominant team they were before the curse of the Babe. The Red Sox have won the 04 World Series and in 07, plus 2 wins in 2013 and 18. You fast forward to 2025, and they're seen as a very respected, competent, and competitive franchise, but during the years that the curse of the Bambino was active, that was very far from the sentiment, and Buckner's era in the 86 World Series highlighted the peak of hopelessness in the fan base. And that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and also be sure to tune in for the next video that will be out soon. Check out the socials on screen. PM Sports out.